So here she is in all her glory, Old Faithful. So I guess one of my favorite things about the car, one of the things that I like to talk about, I guess, is my wheels. And a lot of you guys that have seen these probably are wondering what they are, or you just assumed that they were Inkies or NKs. That is not the case. These are Riles. They were made for BMW in 1984 and 85 or 83, 84, somewhere around in there. They only made them in limited quantity in 4x100. They were originally produced for the BMW 2002, I believe. I'm not 100% correct on that, but these, I picked them up from a buddy. I paid a little over $1,000 for them, and they're well worth it in my opinion. It's actually a really light wheel, despite the dish and the mesh look. They're actually lighter than the OEM wheel, like the SIs and stuff that I had on them. Got some pretty nice tires on them, just because for daily driving I like to hook, but. Yeah, that's, I think, one of my favorite parts about the car. I love the color. It's got the finished lip and the powder-coated red that just kind of matches the theme of my car. I have a nail in one of them, so I decided to take the rears off and put those on so we can take a trip down to Mexico and do some passes. But yeah, they're one of my favorite parts about the car because it kind of sets it apart. They look pretty generic, but they are the real deal. These wheels are very hard to find, and if you look at them, they're not exactly like the BBS wheels. They're a little different, and they're unique in their own style, and that's what I love about them. One of my favorite things about them actually is the fact that I have a squared set of rears because they initially came staggered. The fronts were 15 by 6.5 and the rears were 15 by 7s, I believe. And that's where this extra little lip comes from. I'm not sure how well you can see it on camera, but right here there's an extra ½ inch of lip that goes all the way around the wheel, and that's not originally there on the fronts. That's the added lip for the staggered set on the rear. But I went ahead and, I didn't go ahead. I got really lucky and found a set of squares. So that's one cool thing about my CRX that sets it apart. Another one of my favorite things about the car, I would say, is the bar and the interior. My interior is kind of dirty right now. It's got gaskets in it and stuff, race car life, trying to get it ready last minute and just not being prepared, but it's pretty cool. It's got, a piece of cloth here, or carpet, and a piece of carpet there, and 2 wood inserts right here that are also carpeted, and they basically make up the entire rear interior of my car. I have this cool aftermarket battery box, or whatever you want to call it, rear trunk compartment. That's where my battery relocate is, and it's just a storage compartment for extra tools, and it kind of locks in, and that's a really cool thing that I haven't seen in any other CRXs. So whoever did that, thank you. It's pretty awesome. My cage isn't a certified full cage or anything, but I would like to think that in the event of my car possibly flipping, it would potentially save me. No guarantees, but it definitely looks cool in there, and it makes people think the car is fast, which I'd like to think the car is pretty fast. I have a set of Brad Lomax seats upstairs for the car. I haven't put them in yet because I just haven't gotten to that stage yet, but what everybody would really like to know about, I'm sure, is the engine setup. So I guess I'll get to that part. So originally I had a B20V set up in an EK hatch, and the car was great. It made over 200 horsepower all motor, a fully built B16 head. The car was really fast, but at the time, me and my best friend Walter, we were struggling for space. We had all these extra cars here, and at that point my CRX build was nothing but a dream. And so I decided to kick everything into gear, and I sold the EK hatch for about $3,500, and I bought this swap from a good buddy of mine. He actually runs a company called Short Geared Motorsports. So if you guys are on Instagram or Facebook, definitely look him up. His name is Robert Prather, and he does amazing paint work. He actually, a car he painted won cleanest engine bay in West Coast Shootout. And then there's also Jar Customs, a good buddy of mine named Rob. He does some very awesome, very clean powder coating. So if you're in the Pacific Northwest area, I definitely recommend checking out Jar Customs and Short Geared Motorsports. But anyway, back to the car. I bought the motor, or the long block, from Robert Prather at Short Geared Motorsports. When I bought the car, the specs consisted of an LS VTEC. It had what was supposed to be a fully built head. When we dug into the car, we actually found out it had stock springs and retainers, and I contacted Robert about it, and he made everything right. It was someone had taken it out without his knowledge. So if someone else's, if you get the engine from someone who claims something's in it, I guess you should open it up and check. But long story short, Robert made it right. He bought me the GSC Power Division valve train, and which was actually better than the valve train the motor was supposed to come with originally, so I had no complaints there. And he even lent me all the tools to put it in. I don't know if you guys have put springs and retainers in your own head, but it's kind of a pain in the ass if you guys don't have the compressor tool that they make especially for it. So what the build was what it consisted of when I bought it was stage 2 crane cams. It was supposed to have a full Crower head, but it ended up being stage 2 crane cams. Now it has the GSC Power Division valve train with all those little additives. The head was port and polished to match the JG Edelbrock intake manifold, which I also got with the long block. The bottom end is just an LS bottom end out of an Integra, but the internals are actually out of a GSR. So I've got a GSR crank, GSR connecting rods, and I actually have IATR pistons, which are not the best for this build specifically, but they seem to make good power, and we're only running 9 pounds of boost, so I'm hoping that they'll last a couple of months until I can build a bottom end for this thing and really make some power and get it all ready and buttoned up to be daily driven, because that is the plan, is to have a daily drivable street car that makes somewhere around 400 and is just a fun car to take to Mexico, weekend warrior, to go play around with your friends, or just to go strut your stuff. But back to the car. So I originally had bought a Twisted Motion GT30, and to my surprise, upon startup, we found out the turbo itself was bad. So my buddy Walter threw me this CX Racing turbo off of one of his CX kits, and it's performing amazingly. Actually, it made great power. It's a little 50 trim turbo. Makes decent power. It spools up quick, and I just love the way it sounds. We have an eBay cast top mount manifold. This is a budget build. I am by no way, shape, or form rich, and I have done all of this out of my own pocket. I'm 23 years old, and I'm going from job to job just to follow my dreams and build my race car. But yeah, so over to the transmission, we have a GSR cable transmission with a B16 SIR2 OEM limited slip differential. Gotta have power to both wheels if you're gonna be messing with this kind of power. Down to the intercooler, I bought this intercooler off of someone off of Facebook. He said it was for an STI or something like that, some type of Subaru. I'm not exactly sure. I was just looking for a back door intercooler setup so I could potentially somewhat hide it, because I didn't want it to be super obvious that the car was built. So yeah, up top we've got AEM fuel rail with the fuel pressure regulator, all that good stuff. As far as other modifications to the car, I have a stage 4 unsprung 6-puck clutch with a lightened flywheel. Let me think. I've got an Amusa blow-off valve down there. Amusa wastegate. I have that cheap blow-off valve on there right now. I have my other blow-off valve behind the K20 CRX, which is actually right-hand drive, and we'll make another video on that at another time. But I have another HKS style blow-off valve, just like, where did he go? Just like that guy right there. Another HKS style blow-off valve that we got to put in there. That'll be done at a later day. But yeah, I've got the 68mm throttle body. Like I said, the intake, or the head, is port matched for the intake manifold. Nothing really super crazy as far as the turbo goes. Just an eBay CX Racing turbo, eBay manifold, eBay piping kit. It's tuned on chrome. I was gonna move to Honda, but I'm having an issue. I burnt up 2 ECUs, and we're pretty sure we figured out the issue, but I want to make sure that the car runs well for like another month or two without any electrical issues before I go ahead and shell out the $500 to $600 on Honda. Because that's for someone who doesn't have a ton of money and isn't making crazy YouTube money, that's an expensive loss, for a dumb fuck up. So I don't want to go that route just yet. So I guess my favorite part about the engine setup, to be completely honest, is the LSD. I ran the car all motor, open diff. It had 200 plus horsepower, and it wasn't a nightmare to drive, but launching the car was definitely kind of tough, and it was just hard to hook. And after putting the LSD in the transmission and strapping the turbo kit on, the first time I got to drive the car, it was just a big difference in just like pure torque and just the way the car hooked, the way the car responded to putting the power to the ground. So I think that's my favorite thing about the car, personally, or about the engine and transmission setup. Don't get me wrong, I do love the turbo. I love the fully built head. I love the power that it makes, but I'm in love with the LSD and the tranny. It's one of my favorite things. So I did paint the bay. As you can see, it's not a professional job. I partially shaved that corner just a little bit. I didn't want it to look 100%, great. It's not a show car. It is my race car, but I just said whatever. It's in the shop. I ain't got nothing to do. Might as well, make it fancy. So I did a little bit of a blood splatter for the valve cover, and I kind of matched the intake manifold. And I thought it looked good because it matches the red with the roll cage and the red rails, and it just kind of gives the car that, death theme, I guess. It's a death trap, to be completely honest. Power goals with the car. Potentially, I would love to make, into the 400s. Right now, it's in the low 300s, but we're going to keep it on low boost until I can, get that bottom end built for it. But yeah, as far as future goals with the car, it's getting full aero, the rear chassis mounted wing. I'm doing the side skirts, the front and rear diffusers and splitters. Just all kinds of aggressive track style look to the car. I want it to look like a real race car. We're going to be pulling fenders, in a crazy amount. I might even do fender flares, just, depending on what kind of look I end up going with. But I want this car to look, out of the ordinary. I want it to look straight out of a video game. When you see this car rolling down the road, I want you to break your neck. What was that? Was that a Honda? There's no way. Like, that's the kind of reaction that I want to get. So, I've had this car for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. It was actually given to me by my best friend, and it was somewhat of a family heirloom to his brother, and they asked me to promise to do something with it, to not let this car go to waste. And so I wanted to do my best to fulfill that promise, to uphold my promise. So here we are. As far as money I have into this car, well, I spent the better half of $2,000 on my long block alone. The turbo manifold was like $150. The turbo setup that I had ended up buying, okay, we'll just say my turbo kit, because after everything is said and done, I ended up spending like $600, or I'd say about $750. I spent about $750 on my turbo kit, just piecing everything together with like the turbo, the manifold, the blow-off valve, the intercooler, the piping, injectors. Oh, that's another thing. I'm running 450cc injectors. I had 550cc injectors, but 2 of them need to be rebuilt, so that's another thing. I gotta swap bigger injectors so I can make some more power. I have a Walbro 255 fuel pump, also that's pumping the fuel up, so thankfully I've got enough fuel, and hopefully I can get some bigger injectors here soon so I can make some more power up top. So, and gotta have more boost, so but yeah, back to what I was talking. I forgot what I was even talking about before then. But yeah, anyway, like I said, future plans with this car is I just want it to look like something out of Gran Turismo or Forza. I want it to be the thing that a kid dreams about when he goes to sleep. When he sees this car driving down the road, I want him to think about this car, when he closes his eyes at night. And so this is the journey on getting there. I have a wonderful group of friends that are helping me get this thing done. Shout out to my boy Manny, coming in clutch and motivating people. Got to give a shout out to Walter. He has pretty much built this car. I can't even take 100% credit for it, because this thing is 75%, if not more, Walter built. I do what I can, but Walter is the main mechanic behind this thing. And I really want to get it down to PIR and make some passes, so that way I can showcase Walter's work, because he is an amazing guy doing some amazing stuff. So with this thing, I know one of you guys was asking me about the dyno. Get a hold of me on Instagram or Facebook. YouTube isn't really, it's kind of hard to, keep in contact with you guys over YouTube. It's just like comments, and, I don't want to put out personal information or anything like that over, the YouTube comments. So if you guys are interested in getting your cars dynoed, we can guarantee that we'll do it for cheaper than in any shop around. We are not a licensed business. We're just a couple of guys that like having fun. So if you come and put your car on the dyno, you need to be aware that if it breaks or if anything is to go wrong, we are not liable for damages to your car, or any of your personal belongings in the car, or anything like that. You will come here at your own risk, and you will put your car on at its own risk. But yeah, if we don't feel like the car is running right, we're gonna look it over and assess it before we even put it on the dyno. But if it doesn't pass our inspections, we're not gonna put the car on, because we don't want to go through that kind of drama. But yeah, so just a little rundown of my Turbo CRX, and what I've put into it. I would say, yeah, like I was saying, $750 for the turbo kit. It was about $17 for the long block, and then I'd say about another $1,000 in miscellaneous stuff. $400 for the LSD. I would say I'm into this car for the better part of $10,000 overall, and that's just in like little tedious parts, tires, the wheels, the whole nine. But yeah, I'd say about $7,000 is what it cost me to get this car to the state that it's currently in. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and leave off here. I heard the dogs barking, so I'm guessing Walter's home. I'm gonna go chat with him, get a little talking, see how he's doing, catch up with the boys. But thank you guys for watching. I know this has been a long, really boring video, but this is the history of my CRX. I didn't even really get into the history of like our shop and, you know, our friendship and how we came to be what we are, but I guess, you know, if you keep watching, it'll all explain itself sooner or later. But thank you guys for watching. This is my semi-built LSV CRX, my LSV Turbo CRX, and, you know, my project. So if you guys like what you see, make sure to like and subscribe. It means the world to us small YouTubers. Yeah, so, you know, I'll keep you updated.